Hello everybody, welcome back to another English lesson, and in today's video lecture we're gonna read this beautiful story called Maggie Cuts Her Hair by George Eliot. So I'll tell you an interesting thing because before we start with this story. Now George Eliot, from the name we can see that this person or this writer might be a male writer, but it was not so. George Eliot was a female writer, but George Eliot was writing in 19th century, and English 19th century was a time when people were very strict about women were not allowed to write, women were not educated, women were not given their due rights, they were not given any free rights, or they won't get any freedom in the society. So this is why at that point in time these women were writing under their pseudonyms means fake names. So what these women writers they used to do, they used to take the names of these male names and then they used to write. So the name of the actual writer is Mary Ann Evans, Evans, Evans. So this is the name of the actual writer, and this writer was a female writer, okay? But because her society was very conventional, because her society was very conservative, because at that point in time women were not allowed to write, women were not given any freedom, women were not given any rights. This is why these women writers they used to take the name of these male writers and then they used to write under their pseudonyms. Pseudonyms means fake names, any name that they used to take, okay? So here Mary Ann Evans, this writer took the name of this male writer, that is George Eliot. She made up her own name and she called herself George Eliot. This is why the picture here says that this story has been written by George Eliot, okay? So now from the name itself, what can we see? The story here talks about some character called Maggie, and we'll see that Maggie in the story she cuts her hair. Now the game is we're gonna find out why basically Maggie cuts her hair. What might be the reason behind her cutting her own hair? So we're gonna read the story for that. Let's begin with the story. It says, this story is from a novel, The Mill on the Floss. So we come to know that this is not a story on a whole, but this is an extract, let's say, or this is a little story which has been taken from the novel itself, and the name of the novel is The Mill on the Floss. And it was written by Mary Ann Evans. I just told you that Mary Ann Evans, she took the name of this male writer George Eliot and called herself George Eliot, but her actual name was Mary Ann Evans, who chose to call herself George Eliot. This is something that we just discussed. Mr. Tulliver. Now Mr. Tulliver is the name of the father, okay? Mr. Tulliver is the father of Maggie. Now Maggie is this little girl like you, okay? And the name of her father is Mr. Tulliver, and we also come to know the profession of Mr. Tulliver, who was a miller. And the family lives at the mill beside the river Floss. So the name of the river where they basically live, they live at a place where they have a river, okay? The river is just besides their house, and the name of the river is Floss. Now this father, Mr. Tulliver, he has two children, Tom and Maggie. So Tom and Maggie, they are going to be our main characters in today's story. We're going to focus on these two characters especially in order to understand what this story is about. Now Maggie is often scolded because her hair is untidy. Here we get a little bit about the story. We'll come to know what basically will happen in the story, because Maggie is scolded all the time because she's unable to maybe make up her hair. Her hair is long. She's unable to keep it tidy or clean. Okay, so this is why we see often in the family Maggie is scolded because of that. Now when the story which is told here begins, some of the children's uncles and aunts have just arrived to have dinner at the mill. So we come to know the setting of the story is going to be such that we'll have Mr. Tulliver, his wife Mrs. Tulliver, their two children Maggie and Tom, and we also see the setting of a lot of relatives, that is a lot of uncles and aunts of Maggie and Tom's. They come into the house and they're having this dinner party together, and there we'll see that Maggie, she finally comes with her cut hair and everybody is making fun of her. All right, so to find out more about that, we're gonna read the story line by line together. Okay, so story begins like this. Maggie, said Mrs. Tulliver, calling her to her side and whispering in her ear, go and tidy your hair. I told you not to come in without doing it first. You know I did. So, you know I did. What do we come to know? That Mrs. Tulliver, who is the mother of Maggie, she's scolding Maggie, okay, to not come in like this, okay, to make her hair tidy first, to keep her hair clean first, and then come in front of other uncles or aunts or other relatives that have come in their house. Tom, come out with me, whispered Maggie. So we come to know that Maggie and Tom, they both siblings, pulling her brother's sleeve as she passed him. Tom followed willingly. So willingly, Tom followed Maggie because Maggie was maybe calling Tom. Come upstairs with me, Tom, she whispered when they were outside the door. There is something I want to do before dinner. So there is something I want to do before dinner. So here Maggie, she catches hold of her brother Tom and she takes him forcingly upstairs, and there she tells Tom that there's something that she wants to do, and what is that something that she wants to do, we don't know that. So we're gonna read for that. We're gonna read if Maggie really cuts her hair. There is no time to play anything before dinner, said Tom, who was not interested now in playing anything but his dinner. So Tom, he was very interested in having this delicious dinner that his mother had made for him and for the family and for the relatives that had come. So he just tells Maggie, there is no time for anything, okay, we're not going to play right now. Oh yes, there is time for this. Do come, Tom. Okay, let's see what Maggie now finally has in her pocket. What she wants to show. Tom followed Maggie upstairs into her mother's room and saw her go at once to a drawer from which she took out a large pair of scissors. So what do we come to know? She takes out this large pair of scissors in front of Tom. Okay, let's see what Maggie basically does. What are they for, Maggie? said Tom. So Tom now, he asks Maggie, what are they for? Okay, why are we using this? Why have you taken out this large pair of scissors? Maggie answered by seizing her front hair and cutting it straight across the middle of her forehead. So we finally see that Maggie, she starts to cut her hair. Oh my buttons, Maggie, you will catch it. Oh my buttons, Maggie, you will catch it. This line basically refers to this very idea that Tom, he tries to advise Maggie not to cut her hair anymore. Why? Because if she cuts off all her hair, she will be scolded by the mother, she will be scolded by all the aunts and uncles. They will all mock at her, they will all joke at her, or they will all make fun of her. Okay, so here what basically Tom advises, don't do that. Okay, he basically tries to ask Maggie, or he tries to advise Maggie not to cut her hair, because if she does, what will happen? Everybody will scold her, mother will scold her. Now let's see. Snip went the great scissors again. While Tom was speaking, he could not help feeling it rather good fun. So here we come to know Tom is rather having fun looking at Maggie cutting her hair. He's not understanding the emotions behind why Maggie wants to cut her hair. Why she wants to cut her hair? Because maybe she is too irritated by her hair. Maybe because she gets scolded because of her hair all the time, and this is why she wants to cut her hair. But instead of understanding that very emotion that Maggie has, Tom here, he starts to make fun of her, okay, and he's having this literal fun. He's laughing, he's joking. He rather advises Maggie not to cut her hair, but Maggie here we see does not listen to Tom, and what she does, she again takes out this big pair of scissors, and once more she does what? Snips. We see this word snip. So she finally cuts her hair again. Here, Tom, you might cut it behind for me, said Maggie, anxious to finish the deed. Now she's very anxious. She wants to finish this entire work quickly. She wants to cut off her all the hair, and she asks Tom to cut the hair that is behind her because she would be needing help there. You will catch it, you know, said Tom again, and hesitating a little, he took the scissors. So what does Tom say here? See, you will be scolded badly, okay? You will be very badly scolded by everybody. So think about it. Think before you do this act again. But we see that Maggie, she does not want to listen to anybody this time. This time she literally wants to cut her hair, and she, in a way, she also feels that Tom is going to help her because it is only Tom on whom she can rely. It is only Tom whom she considers her true friend, and it is only Tom whom she can confide on. And she also thinks that Tom is the best guy to give her any suggestion. He's not going to make fun of her like other people would do. Never mind, hurry up, said Maggie, giving a little stamp with her foot. Her cheeks were quite red. So she says, never mind, okay, just come and cut my hair quickly, quickly do it, just snip snap, okay, just cut off this entire piece of hair from my head. The black hair was so thick. Nothing could be more pleasing to a lad who had already enjoyed the forbidden pleasure of cutting the horse's mane. So we come to know that here Tom is literally enjoying cutting Maggie's hair. Now there's a strange satisfaction in making a pair of scissors cut through a mass of hair. Tom feels immense satisfaction. He's very contented from inside. Okay, why? Because he gets to cut this hair of Maggie. One delightful snip, and then another, and pieces of hair fell heavily on the floor. So finally, all the hair from Maggie's head, they all come down. Okay, they're all just there lying on the ground. And Maggie stood, her hair cut short in an uneven manner. So her hair is cut in a very uneven manner, in such a way that she looks very funny. Okay, you go, imagine if you start cutting your own hair, how will you look? You go to a barber or you go to a nice salon or somewhere, okay, and these guys, they cut your hair, they trim your hair nicely in a very even portion, in a very even manner. But here something opposite happens, okay, and all the hair that Maggie had, they're all cut, they're all snapped by her also, by Tom also, and they all look very uneven in a way, uneven in a manner. And Maggie stood, her hair cut short in an uneven manner, but with a sense of freedom. Now this line is very important, but with a sense of freedom. You know, you can ask this question to any girl with a long hair or with long tresses. A lot of girls do like long hair, but a lot of girls don't like it. Okay, you know, when you cut them, you get a sense of freedom because you feel like a lot of burden, it goes away from your head. You know, you can be light and you can just roam around with boys. You don't need to keep them clean or tidy like men do or like boys do. So we all know, any boys or all the boys who are watching this video, they know how easy it is to take care of your hair because they are so short. Imagine a girl with long hair, how hard it would be. We don't think about these things, but they do happen. So here we come to know, similarly, Maggie, she feels a strong sense of freedom within her, as if she had come out from a wood into the open plain. Okay, now, oh Maggie, said Tom, jumping around her and laughing. Oh my buttons, look at yourself in the glass. So what do we see? Now here, something very opposite happens. Maggie was expecting that Tom is going to support her. Maybe Tom is going to like the way she's looking in that short hair. But instead what happens? The opposite happens. Tom, he starts to laugh. He starts to mock Maggie. And now Maggie is all the more disappointed because she was only confiding in Tom. She thought it's only Tom who could help her around. It is only Tom who can give her the best, right, true solution. But that did not happen. Okay, now you can see this picture. Look at how this is Tom and this is Maggie. So this is Tom, this is Maggie, and this is the mirror, and he's trying to help Maggie cut her hair. Okay, so now moving on, it says, Maggie felt an unexpected pain. Why did she feel this pain? Because she was expecting that Tom is going to give her the support. Maybe Tom is not going to laugh. Maybe Tom is going to approve this very idea of cutting her hair. But here, the opposite happens. She had thought beforehand chiefly of her own freedom from her annoying hair and the annoying remarks about it. Annoying hair and annoying remarks. Why does the writer say annoying remarks? Because everybody is scolding her. Her mother says something, her aunts they say something about, and everybody keeps on saying something about her hair, about how filthy they are, how unclean they are, how untidy they are, how they don't look good on her. So Maggie, she starts to feel this sense of freedom. Now there won't be anyone, nobody is going to say anything to me because I also look like a boy. I also have this short hair. Now I also can take care of my hair like the way boys do, in such a simple way. And something also of the triumph she would have over her mother and her aunts by this very bold action. She did not want her hair to look pretty, that was out of the question. So Maggie was already clear, even before cutting her hair, she was already clear that I don't want to look pretty or I don't want to look beautiful. I just want to be free of this large mass of hair that is on my head. She just wanted to be free. She just wanted to cut her hair so that she can also feel light like these boys. She only wanted people to think her a clever little girl and not to scold her. So what she wanted? She wanted that people should just think that she's a little clever girl. She's very smart, too smart to cut her own hair. Okay, and nobody would scold her. Why? Because now she does not have long hair. So who would scold her? Who would say any XYZ thing to her? But now, when Tom began to laugh at her, it became quite a different affair. So now she is extremely surprised because now Tom is making fun of her. So she thinks that if Tom, my brother, if he's not going to support me, then nobody will support me. Now everybody will laugh on me like this. She looked in the glass and still Tom laughed and clapped his hands. Maggie's cheek began to grow pale and her lips to tremble a little. So now Maggie, she starts to feel this pain. She gets very scared. She gets very anxious because she finally realizes that Tom does not like her face. And if Tom is not liking her face, if Tom has a problem with her face, then everybody is going to have the same problem, because it is only through Tom that she can gather a lot of support. And if Tom is not going to support her, then who is going to support her, right? Then next lines it says, "Oh Maggie, you will have to go down to dinner directly," said Tom. Oh my. So we also come to know there is this another setting. Setting number one, where Tom helps Maggie cut her hair, or where Maggie wants to cut her own hair. But there is another setting to this story, and that is all the aunts and uncles, they are sitting at this dining table waiting for the dinner to arrive. So Tom, he comes to Maggie and he says, "Chalo, let's go down, dinner is ready, we're gonna have our dinner now." "Don't laugh at me, Tom," said Maggie, bursting into tears and giving him a push. So Maggie, she starts to cry because she realizes that Tom is also not going to support her now. "Now then, Spitfire," said Tom, "of course you look funny." So he tells her, now finally, look at him. He tells it on her face. He does not understand the emotion of Maggie, what Maggie is going through. So he says, "Now then, Spitfire," said Tom, "of course you look funny. You should have thought of that before. I shall go down. I can smell the dinner going on." So how rude of Tom to not listen to Maggie, to not console his sister, and just busy in having his own dinner. Okay, he just wanted to have his own dinner, his own share. He was not at all concerned with what Maggie was going with. He hurried downstairs and left poor Maggie to her misery. She could see clearly enough now that the thing was done. Now what was the thing that was done? That she had cut her hair finally, and that it was very foolish, and that she would have to hear and think more about her hair than ever. So we come to know that in these last set of lines, Maggie finally realizes what she has done, and this is a situation that she cannot take back. She cannot reverse the situation because it has already happened. She cannot grow back her hair, the amount of hair that she had cut, and that too in an uneven way. Okay. Tom never did the same sort of foolish things as Maggie. So we come to know Tom was not like Maggie. Maggie would do anything that would come in her heart. And so it happened that though he was much more willful than Maggie, his mother hardly ever called him naughty. So we come to know that Tom, he was more naughty, but mother, she never used to scold Tom as much as she used to scold Maggie. But Maggie, as she stood crying before the glass, felt it impossible that she should go down to dinner and endure the severe words of her aunts, while Tom and Lucy and Martha and perhaps her father and her uncles would laugh at her. For if Tom laughed at her, of course everyone else would. And if she had let her hair alone, she could have sat with Tom and Lucy and had the sweet pudding. See, what do we come to know here? That not Maggie, she's sitting upstairs and she is finally imagining all of these things in her mind. She is dreaming, if I would not have cut my hair, I would have been sitting with my brother, I would have been sitting with my other set of sisters. But now with this cut hair, if I would go downstairs, my all uncles, aunts and their children, they will all start to make fun of me, they will all laugh at me. Okay, and she wanted to go down because there is this nice food that has been prepared by the mother, but she cannot. Why? Because she's too ashamed to even think that people are going to laugh at her at the dining table now. Then it says, what could she do but weep? Okay, so what could she do? She was only crying, there was no other option. She sat on the floor helpless and despairing among her black hair. Okay, so all her hair, they were just around her on the floor, and she was just looking at them thinking, oh, why I did that. Miss Maggie, you are to come down this moment. So somebody comes, the servant comes, and she asks for Maggie. She says, your mother is calling you downstairs because we are having the dinner now, everybody is sitting and everybody is going to start their dinner, so why don't you also come down? Now, said Kezia. Kezia was the name of the servant, entering the room hurriedly. Gracious, what have you been doing? I never saw such a fright. So we come to know even she is scared of looking at Maggie. Maggie looks so scary, she looks so horrible in that uneven cut hair that even the servant, she is utterly scared. Don't, Kezia, said Maggie angrily. Go away. So Maggie, she is very angry and she just asks this servant Kezia to just move away from that place. But I tell you, you are to come down, miss, this minute. Your mother says so, said Kezia, going up to Maggie and taking her by the hand to raise her from the floor. So Kezia, she forcefully, she takes Maggie's hands and she says, no, your mother is calling you downstairs. So we all need to go there. You cannot be just sitting here all the time because the food is going to get served in no time. So we all need to go down as soon as we can. Get away, Kezia, I don't want any dinner, said Maggie, pulling away her arm. I shan't come. Oh, well, I can stay. I have to go wait at dinner, said Kezia, going out again. So Kezia, she finally leaves the room, and Maggie, she does not listen to Kezia and let her go, pushes her away angrily. Maggie, you little silly, said Tom, coming into the room 10 minutes after. Why don't you come and have your dinner? There are loads of sweets and mother says you are to come. What are you crying for, you little baby? So we come to know that Tom, he finally comes, he starts to console Maggie. Maybe he understands a little bit of her emotions and he asks her, he pleads her to come down because they're gonna have dinner in no time. Oh, it was dreadful. Tom was so hard and unconcerned. If he had been crying on the floor, Maggie would have cried too. So Maggie, she loved Tom so much that she thinks that if something like this would have happened to Tom, then she would have sat along with Tom and she would have cried too. But here, Tom is just a different guy. He is extremely unconcerned. He does not want to listen to what Maggie is going through. And there was the dinner, so nice, and she was so hungry. It was very bitter. So all the time, Maggie could not stop herself from imagining the delicious dinner that her mother must have made for everybody. But Tom was not altogether hurt. He did not feel like crying. So we see this is the dinner setting. Okay, we'll look at how Maggie is now looking with no hair on her head. Maybe if she has this hair, they cut very unevenly, and this is why maybe she looks very horrible. And Maggie's sorrow did not spoil his enjoyment of the sweets. He was looking forward to. But he went and put his head near her and said in a low, comforting voice, "Won't you come then, Maggie? Shall I bring you a bit of pudding when have had mine?" So now he finally consoles her and he asks Maggie if she would like to have a little bit of sweet, okay, if she would have like to have a little bit of dinner when he is done having his own. So now Maggie, she's very happy listening to it. "Yes," said Maggie, beginning to feel a little more cheerful. Why? Because she finally understands, and maybe Tom understands a bit why Maggie doesn't want to come down. He tries to console her, so Maggie's quite a bit happy with that. "Very well," said Tom, going away, but he turned again at the door and said, "But you had better come. There is fruit, and nuts." So he starts to tempt Maggie. So there is this, there is that, there are going to be cakes, pastries, and this and that. So you should come, okay? I cannot bring each and everything upstairs. So you have to come on your own and sit on the dining table and eat whatever you wish to. Maggie's tears had ceased, and she began to think as Tom left her. His good nature had taken away the worst of her suffering, and nuts and pudding began to have their proper influence upon her. So Maggie, she forgets everything, in the meanwhile, and she starts to imagine about the pudding, about the nice food that the mother must have made. Slowly, she rose from among her scattered hair, and slowly she made her way downstairs. Then she stood, leaning with one shoulder against the frame of the dining room door, looking in through an opening. She saw Tom and Lucy with an empty chair between them, and that empty chair was for whom? It was for Maggie to come and sit. And there were the sweets on a side table. It was too much. She entered quietly and went towards the empty chair. But no sooner had she sat down than she felt sorry and wished herself back again upstairs. So Maggie, she finally gathers a lot of courage. She finally gathers enough courage to go down and sit in front of everybody. But the moment she sits on the dining table, the moment everybody looks at her, the moment they all start laughing, she starts thinking, "Oh, it's really unfortunate. I shouldn't have come down. I shouldn't have sat with these people because they're going to laugh at me now." Mrs. Tulliver gave a little scream as she saw her. So we see the mother, Mrs. Tulliver. She's very surprised. She's very angry looking at Maggie. She does not believe in her eyes what Maggie has done to her hair, and dropped the large spoon into the dish with serious results to the tablecloth. For Kezia had not told them why Maggie refused to come down, and Mrs. Tulliver had thought that it was nothing very unusual. Okay, so here finally Mrs. Tulliver, she understands why was Maggie not coming down, because she had cut her own hair. Mrs. Tulliver's cry made all eyes turn towards the same point as her own. So what is the point here? Maggie itself is the point. And Maggie's cheeks and ears began to burn, while Uncle Glegg, a kind-looking, white-haired old gentleman, said, "What a little girl is this? Why, I don't know her. Is it some little girl you've picked up on the road, Kezia?" So see, Uncle Glegg, he's the first one, he's the first relative to make fun of Maggie, and he asks Kezia, the servant, that, "Did you pick up this little girl from a road? Because she does not look like our girl, she looks like a beggar." "Yes," said Uncle Glegg, meaning to make a joke out of his wife's cruel words. She must be sent to prison, I think, where they will cut the rest of her hair and make it all even. So we see another relative. They also start. He also starts to make fun of Maggie. And what does he say? Yes, she should be sent to prison. Okay, she should be sent to jail, where they should be cutting all her hair and make it even altogether. She's a naughty child and will break her mother's heart, said Mrs. Tulliver with tears in her eyes. So Mrs. Tulliver, she's so sorrowful, she's so angry, that she starts to cry looking at Maggie's hair. Maggie seemed to be listening to all this quite calmly. At first she felt angry, and this made her brave enough to bear their laughter for a time. And Tom thought she was helped by the appearance of the pudding to bear everything. So Tom basically thought that it was only because of sweets, it was only because of the delicious dinner that has been made that Maggie is sitting there and finally bearing all of it. He whispered, "Oh, my Maggie, I told you would catch it." So he says, "See, I told you, everybody will scold you, but you did not listen to me and you started cutting your own hair." He meant to be friendly, but Maggie thought he too was laughing at her. Okay, her poor powers of endurance broke down, and getting up from her chair, she ran to her father, hid her face on his shoulder, and burst out into loud weeping. So what basically happens? Maggie, when everybody's mocking her, when everybody's making jokes on her, they're all laughing at her, she starts to cry. Even Tom does not help her. The mother does not help her. Mother is screaming. Tom is having fun. Okay, so everybody is having fun, and Maggie, she starts to cry so badly that she runs. She runs to her father. She runs towards her father, and she hides her face into the father's shirt, and she starts to cry loudly. Now, let's say what does father say? It will be the father only in the end who will protect Maggie of all that was happening. "Come, come, my child," said her father gently, putting his arm around her. "Never mind. You were in the right to cut it off. It troubled you. Stop crying. Father will take your part." So the father, he consoles Maggie, and he says, "Don't cry, okay? I will take your part. I am on your side. It's absolutely okay if you wanted to cut your hair, and it's absolutely fine if you finally cut your hair. It's okay. It's all right. Nothing to worry about. If it was troubling you, then it's okay. If anything troubles if anything troubles you in life, then you should just be cutting it off, whether it be a person or your hair or your clothes, anything that troubles you, you should just take it off from your life, whether it's stress, anger, everything." Okay, delightful words of tenderness. Now Maggie, she finally is consoled. She stops crying. Okay, Maggie never forgot any of these moments when her father took her part. So Maggie, when she grew up, okay, when she became a big girl, even then she never forget how her father used to protect her. This incident remained with Maggie inside her heart. She kept them in her heart and thought of them long years after, when everyone said that her father had done very ill by his children. Ill by his children means that father had not taken care of children nicely. So she basically these last lines refers to this very idea that Maggie was very close to her father. She was very attached with her daddy, and it also tells her that Maggie, when she grows up, she always remembered how her father helped her, how her father was with her, all those rough times, all those bad times, when people were mocking at her, when people were making fun of her. And the last line, if you look at the last line, it says, when everyone said that her father had done very ill by his children. If you read this entire novel nicely, you see that the father, he dies after some years, and all the relatives, they say that this father, he did not take care of the children, he did not take care of Maggie and Tom nicely like the way a father should. And Maggie, she refused anybody or she was angry. She used to get angry with anybody who used to say that, because she knew it was only her father, it was only her daddy who was all with her all those years. When times were troubling, when times were bad, it was only her father who was always standing like a strong pillar besides her. Okay, so here we end this beautiful story, The Mill on the Floss. Okay, I hope you guys liked it, and we're gonna have more sessions on it. And till then, yes, I will be waiting for your videos. Let's see what you guys think what this story is about. Okay, yeah, all right, thank you so much for listening it out. We'll see you soon.